Rain swept across the eastern fens as a lone rider reached the gates of an old manor. Its stones dark with age long before anyone living had been born. The lord of the house was already waiting for him. He dismissed the guards and led the stranger inside himself. Neither man spoke until they reached the great hall. "My grandfather once said your family were the only reason this house was still standing." The stranger said nothing. "We've always honored your family's debt on mine and helped you protect the secret." He led him toward a staircase, disappearing into the oldest part of the manor. "My servants won't go below anymore. They hear footsteps. They hear voices." He stopped, and now they're finding bodies. The stranger looked toward the darkness beneath the hall. For the first time, he seemed interested. "This house has stood for centuries," the lord said quietly. "It has never known fear." He turned. "You'll help me, won't you, Salazar?" Salazar looked toward the stairs. Then he nodded once.
"Take me to the first body."
Long before Hogwarts, the Founders, and Harry Potter origin story. 1 week earlier, in Thistlewood, the knight was still staring at the woman who had just used his name. "We've never met." "No." "Then how do you know who I am?" Rowena smiled. Stories of a wandering knight had travelled far beyond Thistlewood. To most, they were stories of an extraordinary swordsman. To another, witch. The truth was rather easier to spot. Rowena hadn't come looking for him. She had been travelling east when she stopped in Thistlewood for the night. Then she heard about 3 enormous wolves, and the knight who had faced them alone. When did the attacks begin? Spring. Rowena's smile faded. The runes she had found were ancient. Now, after generations of silence, dark creatures were appearing where they hadn't before. It could be coincidence. Rowena had never cared much for coincidences. "Where are you going?" Godric asked. "East, another old place, more strange markings." Godric finished his drink. "Then I suppose we're going east." The cellar had been left untouched since the steward's body was found. He still lay where he had fallen. Salazar knelt beside him. The man's clothes were undisturbed. His skin had already begun to pale. There was nothing to suggest how he had died. "Who found him?" Salazar asked. "My brother." "And where is he now?" The lord lowered his eyes. "He died the following night." Salazar looked at the body once more, then at the man's hands. Dark markings crept beneath the skin of his fingertips. He rested a hand upon his staff. Faint green light travelled through the carved symbols in the wood. The markings spread across the dead man's hand, revealing thin black lines beneath the skin. Runes. Salazar's expression changed. He had encountered magic like this only once before. He slowly stood. "This isn't a haunting." The lord looked at him. "Then what is it?" Salazar didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the cellar. Salazar's eyes settled on a narrow crack running through the oldest stones. He crouched beside it. Moments later, a small green snake emerged from the darkness. The servants, watching from the stairs, instinctively stepped back. One whispered, "He speaks to them." Another quietly replied, "No man should." Salazar ignored them. He spoke softly. The words were unlike any language the servants had ever heard. The snake answered. Then it slipped back into the crack and disappeared. Lord Elfric looked at Salazar. "What did it say?" Salazar watched the snake vanish into the darkness. "It showed me where to look." Without another word, he picked up his staff and walked deeper into the cellar. Lord Elfric followed Salazar back into the great hall. "You've found what killed them?" Salazar shook his head. "I've found what it left behind." Without another word, he walked past the servants and toward the manor's entrance. He stopped beneath the oldest archway in the house. His fingers brushed across the weathered stone. Then he closed his eyes. The manor fell silent. A faint green light travelled through the carvings on his staff. One by one, ancient symbols appeared across the stone arch. They glowed softly, then faded once more. The silence lifted. Somewhere outside, birds began singing again. A breeze drifted through the open doors. The servants looked at one another. The house felt alive. Lord Elfric stared at Salazar. "What did you do?" Salazar lowered his staff. "Something your family has neglected for a very long time." The Lord looked back toward the arch. "I don't understand." Salazar allowed himself the faintest smile. "I wouldn't expect you to." By late afternoon, 2 more travellers reached Lord Elfric's estate. The gates stood open. Servants crossed the courtyard carrying water, timber and supplies. Whatever had gripped the manor, life had begun to return. Rowena slowed her horse. "We're here." Godric studied the estate. "It doesn't look like a place under siege." Lord Elfric stepped out to greet them. "Welcome, travellers. I am Rowena Ravenclaw, and this is Godric." The Lord inclined his head. "You've arrived at a fortunate time." Rowena looked past him toward the manor. "So, it was all for nothing?" Lord Elfric smiled with quiet relief. "So it would seem." Rowena exchanged a brief glance with Godric. "Is it?" A calm voice answered from behind them. "Really?" They turned. Salazar Slytherin stood at the entrance of the manor. For a long moment, no one spoke. Salazar studied the 2 travellers before him. A knight carrying a sword no ordinary knight should possess. A scholar whose eyes missed very little. It was enough. "You've come a long way," Salazar said. "So have you," Rowena replied. A faint smile crossed Salazar's face. "What brings you to Lord Elfric's estate?" Rowena reached into her satchel. "I was hoping you could answer that." She unfolded a small parchment. An ancient rune had been carefully copied onto it. Salazar accepted it. "Where did you find this?" "In the ruins of an old watchtower." She unfolded another. "An abandoned chapel." Then another. "Beneath a standing stone." Salazar studied each, rubbing in silence. The same rune. 3 different places. He handed the parchments back. "These are old. Far older than Lord Elfric's house." Rowena watched him carefully. "You've seen them before?" Salazar was quiet for a moment. "Something very much like them. And they should have remained forgotten." The words lingered between them. He looked from Rowena to Godric. "I don't know what led you here, but whatever you're following reaches back into a very old world." He glanced toward the manor. "My family served Lord Elfric's for generations." Then his expression softened. "But if you continue searching for these..." He rested a hand upon his staff. "Aki, be careful. Some knowledge survives because it deserves to." Neither Rowena nor Godric answered immediately. At last Rowena gave a small nod. Godric inclined his head. "Until we meet again." "I suspect we shall," as the evening sun slipped behind the trees. Rowena and Godric continued east. Salazar watched them disappear beyond the estate before turning back toward the manor. That evening, peace returned to Lord Elfric's manor. For the first time in days, the servants laughed over supper. The fires burned brighter. Even Lord Elfric seemed relieved. As night fell, Salazar prepared to leave at first light. His work here was finished, or so he believed. Then, he heard it, a faint whisper, barely more than a hiss. Salazar looked toward the ceiling, the old stone water channels. Another whisper followed. Longer this time, he slowly reached for his staff. The sound wasn't coming from the room. It was travelling through the ancient conduits beneath the manor. Salazar followed it into the cellar. The same small serpent emerged from the crack in the wall. It looked agitated. Salazar knelt. The 2 spoke quietly. The exchange was brief. When it ended, Salazar remained perfectly still. His eyes drifted toward the parchment Rowena had left open upon a nearby table, then toward the rune carved beneath the steward's skin. Slowly, he placed them beside one another. Silence. "They're moving." He looked toward the ancient stone channels disappearing beneath the manor. "No." His voice was barely above a whisper. "This was never about the house." Dawn came quietly to Lord Elfric's estate. The fear that had settled over the manor was gone. Servants returned to their work. Children laughed in the courtyard once more. Lord Elfric walked with Salazar to the gates. "My family will not forget what you've done here." Salazar inclined his head. "See that the old protections are never neglected again." Lord Elfric smiled. You have my word. Salazar mounted his horse. For a moment, he looked west, home. Then he turned east, toward the road Rowena and Godric had taken. Lord Elfric frowned. I thought your journey lay in the other direction. Salazar gathered the reins. So did I. Without another word, he rode east.
If you're enjoying the Founders Saga, please consider subscribing. And we've only just begun. Leave your theories in the comments below. And join us next week for another journey into the What If verse.